5 instructions. And for the next 2 classes, we'll continue describing RISC architecture and instructions. And later on, we will start looking at how to implement these. Okay. And in case you have any question, please ask or send me a question by email or call me, whatever you feel like. But if you understand RISC instruction set well and corresponding architecture, then that's good enough for this course, right? I mean, you will have solid foundation, because this RISC processor design in fact covers a lot of things. Okay, actually it covers a lot of new ideas, how to design processor, why processors have been designed in a particular way, and so on. Okay, and you can and plenty of information is available online. You can go to RISC-V's website, and then you can get enough material from there. Okay. All right. Okay. So today's class, we will look at how to generate constants, and then look at branching instruction, and plain jump instruction, and we'll try to or we will learn how to construct these higher level program. For example, in C, if we have if instruction, then how to implement this in assembly. Similarly, we'll do it for if, else, while, and for loops. So that's all we'll cover today. So in previous classes, we started with RISC-V architecture, and then we looked at number of register it has. Then we have looked at, in general, the format. This is a format of different instructions. We have not discussed the format part as such in detail, but in general, we have seen that a typical instruction contains all instructions will contain opcode, and then it has the register kind of instruction will contain 3 registers, and then immediate kind of instruction will contain 2 registers, in addition to, of course, opcode, and 1 immediate field, which is 12 bits wide. Okay, and there are some instructions. There, of course, is store type of instruction, which has again 2 registers and 1 immediate field. And this immediate field is again of 12 bits. And there is one instruction, we'll come to that, wherein the immediate field is of 20 bits, sorry. So we'll look at some of these, and then once we cover all the instructions that we're studying now, then look at how beautifully this whole instruction set has been designed, and the format is so neat and uniform, because we can see some similarity. All instructions between 0 and 6 bit, the first 7 bits will contain opcode, and then the one here 7 to 11 will be for destination. It's either destination register or something that defines destination. Okay, and 2 source register 1 and source register 2 are always be in these fields. Okay, so we'll look at these little later. So far we have covered arithmetic operations like add, subtract, add. Then we have looked at the load and store instruction, how to get data from memory and how to write data from memory. So data means, in fact, we are loading word. It means bringing word from memory to register. Storing word means taking word from register to memory. Similarly, loading byte, storing byte, and loading byte unsigned. Okay, and then we have bit by bit instructions like logical instructions like AND, OR, XOR. Then we have AND-I, OR-I, XOR-I. All this we have studied in detail. And then we have also studied shifting left and right, right? SLL, shift left logic, and then SRL, shift right logical. SRA is this arithmetic shift, and then with immediate field. So these all we have studied in fair detail. Okay. So let's look at today how to generate constant. Okay, it means that we want to bring a constant to a register. Okay, or we have to generate this. For example, a program, your C program will say that assign to variable A value minus 372. Now in assembly, we can simply do this by using this instruction add I to register x0. So basically add I, contents of x0 is added with this immediate field value, which is minus 372, and the result goes to register s0 because s0 represents A, right? So in this way, x0 is always 0. We know that. So 0 plus minus 372 is minus 372. So it will go to register A. Now what is the constraint here? If you look at the format of add I, then there are only 12 bits there for immediate field. Okay, you can look at the format here, right? So this is I type of immediate type. So total number of bits here are 0 to 11, which is 12. It means that the constant here that we are generating has to be limited by this number of bits. Okay, so it's a signed one because we are using signed. We are not using unsigned ones here. Instruction assumes that immediate field contains signed one. Then of course we know the range, right? If there are 12 bits, so 2 raised power 11 on one side and 2 raised power 11 on the other side. There's a positive 2 raised to 11 and negative 2 raised to 11. So in case we want to generate a constant which is bigger than that can be represented by 12 bits, then we need to do something else. That's what we call generating 32-bit constants. Okay, any question in this part? This is straightforward, right? All right. Anyone can say yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, now how do we generate 32-bit constant? So far we have generated only 12-bit here. Using 12-bit, whatever maximum we can do, we have done it, right? Now we will use instruction called LUI, load upper immediate. Okay, now LUI instruction puts an immediate in upper 20 bits of destination register. Okay, so this LUI instruction, if you look at the format, then you will have immediate field which is of 20 bits. Okay, so should be something like this. This is opcode, and 12 bits will be something else. Okay, and so this usually is 5 bits. Okay, I'm sorry, not 12 bits. So this is 20 bits, let's say. Okay, this is immediate field. Okay, and then 32 minus 25, that is 7 bits for something else. That will, let's see what it is, but we don't care about it now. All right, so now 20 bits that are there in the instruction will be brought into this. Let's assume this is a register, will be brought into MSB 20 bits, basically towards the upper end of this register. So these are the 20 bits, and remaining will be filled with zeros. So this is what LUI instruction will do. Now what we want is that we need to have some value here. Then we can do add I. Okay, so if we do add I, for example, to this register with immediate field of 765, then we can generate the total integer that's given here. Okay, any question? All right, let's move ahead then. Now there is one trick. Yeah.
Can you explain again?
Which one?
So this one, this LUI, like I didn't get like how, what is like this one adding upper immediate, like what is adding exactly?
No. Basically, it looks at the instruction. LUI instruction will have some immediate field. Basically, it will contain some constant that we have seen here, right? 20 bits of constant is there. Okay, that you will have defined in LUI field. So LUI is instruction which says load upper immediate. Okay, so it will, then you have to specify into whom there should be some register here. Okay, so load into register. So when we say LUI S0, that is into register say S0, you load 20 bits which are given in the immediate field. And where can you load? Because this register has 32 bits, right? You can load towards the right hand side or left hand side. So it says that upper side means the MS towards the higher value side, this MSB side, load 20 bits. Now still 12 bits are left out in the register. So that those 12 bits you fill with zeros. Got it?
Okay, sir. So basically, this works with 20 bits, right?
Yeah. So this instruction, LUI instruction, if you look at its format, it defines in such a way that it has an immediate field of 20 bits. Okay. Now you are taking those 20 bits, which corresponds to this one, right? The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these 5 into, because each hex is represented by 4, so basically 20 bits. These 20 bits you will be part of your instruction. Now something is left out, right? We have to have this and then appended with 765. Now after this instruction, LUI instruction, what you have is into register value will be FEDC8, right? And then remaining are zeros. Okay, so basically 5, so basically 3 zeros will be, the 0 is actually, this is a hex 0. So basically 12 bits of zeros. Now you need this some value here in register which corresponds to 765. Then you do in this number, if you add 765, then you get the something that you wanted. That is FEDC8 765. Okay, got it? So that's reason we do add immediate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here you have written that add I sign extends is 12-bit immediate. So so I just have a small doubt that if we add it afterwards, that we like to add I afterwards, then won't the 20 starting bits be like erased sort of?
No, so basically, see, it's like this. So we have all zeros here, right?
Yes, sir.
Remember, see, this instruction say LUI puts an immediate, that's a 20 bits into destination register, and in the same destination register put remaining 12 bits as zeros.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So now we don't want zeros there, right? In 12 bits, we want 765, which is actually equivalent to 12 bits, which can present 12 because this hex number, right? 0x. So you add to this one whatever you have. So you have this one after LUI instruction. Into that you add 765. Then you get the something that you wanted to have. That is FEDC8 765. Got it? So basically, this instruction in C you can generate by this set of instructions in assembly. All right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any doubt? Then maybe after the class I can explain to you. Okay? Now it is not as simple as, there are some corner cases, and it because this simple addition may not work all the time. Now this is okay if it is a positive thing, right? Positive number. However, it is a negative number. Okay, then you will find some overflow somewhere, right? So there is, in order to take care of overflow, then it says that if bit 11 of 32-bit constant is 1, then increment the 20 bits by 1 in LUI. Okay, so if this is the number, okay, this is a hex number. Now obviously this is a negative. Okay, so then we need to do some when you run this program, right? Then you have to add 1. What should I say? Then increment the upper 20 bits by 1. So you have to just add 1 in upper 20 bits such that result is accurate, correct. Now I would like you to basically do this exercise at home and see how it really works out. So if you look at this number we want to achieve, this, okay, then we increment the number which I am loading by 1. So instead of 8 here, we are loading it 9. Okay, and the remaining is same. And then you get, if you add these 2, then you get the desirable result. Okay, so it becomes something like this plus this is equal to this, and correspondingly you can have these instructions. So please do this exercise at home. Okay, next is branching. So in C program or any language, right, branch is very, very important. When you do branch, it means that the normal flow is instruction execution one after other. Now, if you have to take any decision, okay, now decision based on some data, right? Then you change the instruction decision, because if some conditions are met or not met, then you say that no, let's not execute sequentially, but let's execute some set of instructions. Okay, so for example, if then else, okay, or you do a simple, say for example, while or do, while some conditions are met, execute some statements, and for loop, for example. So all these are the higher level concepts which requires us to, when we generate assembly, we'll require some kind of branching. Now there are instructions in assembly, that is MIPS 5, which are branch if equal to, branch not equal to, branch if less than, or branch if branch if less than unsigned, or branch if greater or equal to, or branch if greater or equal to unsigned. So these essentially, these are called conditional jumps, right? If some conditions are met, then we branch or we change the flow of instruction to something if conditions are met or not met, depending on the conditions that are given here. And then there are unconditional branches, which we call as jump, simply jump without any conditions, or jump register, or jump and link, or jump and link register. So we'll look at these last 3 when we study the procedures or function calls. Okay, we'll look at jump instruction today. Actually, we have looked it up earlier as well. Okay, first is branch not equal to. Okay, so it is as simple as that. If, okay, basically it says that if register 1, contents of register 1 is equal to contents of register 2, then jump to level L1. Now this is a level L1 which we have defined in assembly program. Okay, all right. So otherwise, if these conditions are not met, if register 1 contents is not equal to register 2, then continue execution. Go to the next statement and so on. All right, so let's look at one example, and after that we'll pause, and if you have any question, please ask me. Okay, so look at this set of instructions. So first instruction is add I S0, this is destination register, then add the value of 0 register and 4, number 4. This is the immediate number, right? So as a result of that, S0 we know, sorry, 0 is 0. Register 0 contains 0. We call it X0 also. Now I'm using name here. So addition of these two will result into value 4 and bring into register S0. Similarly, you do add I S1 0 1. So we are initializing S1 with value 1. So S1 is 1. Okay, then you say SLLI S1 comma S1 2. It means that shift left logical what the contents of S1 by 2 positions. Okay, what is content of S1 now? Content of S1 is 1. Okay, so when you shift 1 by 2 positions, it becomes 4. Okay, so this is as simple as that, right? Let's look at only, okay, I'm sorry. So this is 1, right? So this is, let's look at only 4 bit. So if you shift it by 1 position, so it will become 0 0 1 0, because you'll have to insert 0 from left hand when you do left shift. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and you move it by 2 positions, then it becomes, I'm sorry, oh, what's happening? 1 0 0, it becomes 4. Okay, so basically it's becoming 4. Now what are we doing next? If S1 is equal to, if S0 is equal to S1, then jump to target. So what is S0? S0 is 4. And what is value of S1 after left shift? It has become 4. So branch on equal. If these two are equal, then jump to target. What is target? We have defined a label target in the assembly language program, right? And then it means that now these two instructions will not be executed. And after if this condition is met, the next instruction to be executed will be at the level target. Okay, so as a result, this instruction will be executed, which is S1, value of S1 will become addition of S1 and S0. So S1 we know is 4, S0 is 4, so S1 will now have value 8. All right, any doubt, any question?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, if the branch was not taken, that is, if S0 is not equal to S1, if that was the case, then will the target label thing, will that be processed afterwards? Like after add I and sub then add?
So there's a normal sequence, right? So if this is not taken, the next instruction will be add I, this one. Once this is executed, second will be executed, and then third will be executed. This is normal, right? Otherwise, if conditions are met, you jump directly here. As simple as that. All right, so look at that also, right? And make sure that when you define a label in assembly language program, it's not a reserved word. Do you understand reserved words, right? In reserved words in any language are the words that you use. For example, you cannot have this label as if. You cannot have this as else. You cannot have this as an int. Because all these are the words used for a specific purpose. These are reserved. You cannot have any variable in program or any label in the program, okay, which are the reserved words, right? So for assembly, we have certain reserved words. What we are telling you is actually for C language. So assembly, we have certain reserved words, so we can't use it. For example, target cannot be add. You cannot define target as add. Because add is used for something else, because when assembler will look at this target level add, then it will get confused, right? So you cannot do that. All right. So there are certain rules you have to follow to define label field. Okay. All right. So let's move into next one. Yeah.
So can we call it label as an address in the instruction sequence?
So ultimately, when machine language instructions are formed, then this label is replaced by address.
Okay.
You're right. But in assembly, you have to have mnemonics, right? So ultimately, everything that we are doing, add I, whatever, right? All these things, or S1, S2, or whatever, is converted into some numbers, binary numbers, and these are stored somewhere in some memory location. So label corresponds to address. You're right. Okay, but this conversion will happen when it convert this assembly into a machine language.
Yeah.
And that's the role of assembler.
Got it.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, let's move ahead. Huh? All right. So next is branch if not equal. So RISC-V. I have read their book actually, which gives philosophy. They say that most of the time programmers use this very often. So basically, branch when equal or branch not equal. It looks very similar, right? Okay, so you can always create, all the functionality of branch not equal with branch equal. But they said that we have created many of these conditional instructions. So it simplifies the programming. Okay, all right. So let's look at this similar statement here, which is in assembly. So add I, first instruction, add I S0, that is add I 0 and 4 and bring it to register S0. So S0 becomes 4. Second is S1, bring to S1 0 and 1, sum of 0 and 1. And so it becomes, so S1 will now contain 1 after the execution of the statement. Then third statement is that shift left logical immediate. Immediate means that so shift left logical S1. So S1, whatever contents of S1, shift left by 2 positions. Okay. So S1 contains 1. So if you shift it by 2 positions, it becomes 4. Clear? Now, all right. So S0 is 4, S1 is 4. Similar to what we have done last. Now, the statement is branch not equal to S0, S1 target. Okay. Now, of course, they are not equal. It means that, branch not equal to target, right? So they are same, right? S0, S1 same. So it means that branch will not be taken. Okay, will not take this branch. There will be no jump here. This condition is false. So it means that we continue to execute the statements here. So we'll do add I S11, which is 5. And another instruction is S1 is equal to S1 minus S0. So 5 minus 4 is equal to 1. Right? It could be any random statement. For example, for just demonstration purpose, author has used some statement. And then next instruction executed will be S1 is equal to S1 plus S0. So S1 is after this is 1 and S0 is 4. So total will be 5. Okay. Any question? So it's very simple. All right. Similarly, there is a statement which says a branch if less than equal to. Okay. So for example, if BLT is branch less than, if contents of S0 is less than contents of S1, then jump to target. Okay. Now if so, it's in comment field is given is if S0 is less than S1, then jump to target. So, but here S0 and S1 are signed integers. Okay. It means they're in 2's complement form. Okay. And second is BLTU. Here the S1 and S2 contents are unsigned. And semantics is the same. If S0 content is less than S1, then jump to target. All right. Similarly, greater than equal to. If S0 is greater than S1, jump to target. And BGEU is same thing for unsigned. All right. Simple. All right. So now let's use these. And then of course we have unconditional jump. Okay, jump to target. As soon as this instruction is executed, then and the next instruction to be executed will not be something in the sequence. It will not be this, but something that is at target, where target is a label. So it means that once we execute jump to target, the next instruction will be this one, right, which is add S1 and S0, bring it to S1, which is 1 plus 4 is equal to 5. Simple. We have already discussed this earlier. Any question up to this point? Now we will have some exercises as an assignment to you. So once you do the assignments, and try to do it, without doing cut and paste, because for every problem that I give, either in assignment or something, there will be some solution in internet. Okay, somebody would have done similar things or maybe same thing, because ultimately these are from some exercises given at some book or somewhere. So if you just cut and paste, that you don't learn. Okay, and the whole objective of the course is learning, right? Because it's not really scoring marks, because once you get the degree, the concept of marks is all over. What matters then is essentially your knowledge, right? So please focus on understanding concepts, and when exercises are given, please dirty your hands. The whole idea is that you have to dirty your hands, only then you will learn. Okay. And by the way, I am also learning along with, because comp science is changing so fast that if you don't learn and relearn, you become obsolete. Okay. All right. So now let's see how we will develop these statements in assembly language program. So if statement, if else statement, while loop, and for loop, these are all we know that these exist at high level language. So like in C or Java, will have some of these. I don't know which one of these will be in Java, but I'm sure some of these will be in Java as well, because no programming language without these statements can exist, right? I mean, otherwise you cannot take any decision. Okay, so these are maybe in some form or other, but every language will have loop, every language will have if then, or maybe if then else. Okay, all right. I'm sure you know difference between if then and if then else, right? You would have done this programming in your first level course or even afterwards. So let's look at if statement again and see how it works out in assembly. All right. So this is very simple code. If variable I is equal to variable j, okay, if value of I is equal to j, then execute this statement, f is equal to g plus h. So the question is that if they are not equal to, then execute the next statement following this statement. So this statement will be executed if I is equal to j. As simple as that. This is very simple semantics. Okay, note that this is not else, right? So had it been else, then next statement for execution would have been, if this condition is met, if I is equal to j, you execute this, then next statement would have been something following this one. Now if this is simple if statement, and if this statement, if this condition is met, I is equal to j, you execute this followed by this one. If this condition is not met, if I is not equal to j, then you come to the next one. Simple. Now let's do this in assembly. Now we'll have to define some variables. Say where ij, f, g, h will be. Now let's assume that these values are already available in registers. And corresponding values are as follows. So register S0 will contain F, S1 will contain G, S2 will contain H, S3 will contain I, or S4 will contain J. So this is our assumption, because this is a part of the code. Our previous instruction would have brought this value to these registers. Now here we say I is equal to J. This is the condition. I is equal to S is in S3 and J is in S4. Note here, we are using branch any, branch if not equal to, where in C, we are using condition if I is equal to J. Okay, so when we convert this C program logic into assembly language logic, we negate it. Okay, so we say branch not equal to, sorry, branch not equal to if S3 comma S4 L1. It means that if S3 and S4 are not equal to, then take this branch. Okay, else do this statement. So now the next statement is add S1, S2, which is G and H, and bring it to S0, which is F. So this statement you are executing. Okay, and if this condition is met, if S3 is not equal to S4, then you come here. Okay, now anyway you come here if this condition is not met. So if this condition is not met, if it means that if S3 is equal to S4, you execute this followed by this one. So the semantics are exactly same for this. Okay, any question? Okay, are you there?
Yes, sir.
This logic is simple, right? So assembly tests opposite case of high level code. Although overall semantics remain same, but you'll have to do it because in this way, because it simplifies your coding. Otherwise, if you can use the other one, branch equal to, try doing that at home. Then just see what kind of statements you use. Please do this as an exercise, okay? All right, so now let's look at if-else statement. Okay. Now you understand the logic of if then else, right? Then of course here is silent, so we use that it if else. Some older programming languages, like for example, I started programming with Algol 60, and Algol 60 used to have very specifically then statement, if condition and then reserved word then, and then the set of statement then else. Okay, but anyway, so there is. So if this statement is if conditions are satisfied, if I is equal to J, then execute this, F is equal to G plus H. If this is not satisfied, if I is not equal to J, then execute F is equal to F minus I. Simple. Okay. Now, the question that I'm asking is that if I is not equal to J, then what is the next statement that you will execute? You will not execute this. You will also not execute this. You will execute something is next to this else statement. All right. Now, if you convert this logic, it means that if you code it in this one, then you'll find out that then you have to jump to a location which is after else statement. So here you see the jump is coming here. Okay, all right. So now you can, as you have done in earlier case, you can assume that value of I, J, F, G, and H are in corresponding registers which are shown here. That S0 will contain F, S1 will contain G, S2 will be H, S3 will have I, and S4 will have J. Now this is the assumption. Okay, that these are the initial values that are there, and we say the branch any branch are not equal. When not equal, it means S3 is not equal to S4. What is S3 is that if I is not equal to J, okay, I is not equal to J, then you execute this. sorry, branch is not equal to J. So I'm sorry, branch is not equal, S3 is not equal to J, then jump to L1. Then you come here. Otherwise, if they are equal, if S3 is equal to S4, then you continue to here. All right. Okay. So basically, this statement will be executed if these conditions are met, right? B or S3 is not equal to S4, only then you execute it. Similar to here, if I is not equal to J, then you execute this. And you note that if this condition is not met, then you will execute these two, and then there is a plain jump to next section here, which is following L1. Any question? Okay. Any doubt?
So the jumping part was not clear to me.
The here, right? The one here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Check that how logic will work. What's happening? Let's look at C code, right? Okay. So basically, in C code, you see that else statement, this part, will not be executed if conditions are met. Okay, if I is equal to J, then execute this one. Okay, if this is not met, then you execute this one. Fine. Now let's assume that this condition is met. I is equal to J, then you execute F is equal to G plus H. You have done that. What is the next statement then you have to execute? As per if then else statement. Else statement will be executed if this condition is not met, but we know it's met. So next statement will be a statement following this statement, else statement. Is it clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now how do we implement this? Now, if this condition is, so here, branch is not equal to S3 is equal to S4. S3 contains I and S4 contains J. If they are not equal to, then jump to L1. This is clear? Okay, so you branch to L1, it means that you execute this statement. If I is equal to not J or S3 is not equal to S4, here also if I correspond to S3 and J correspond to S4, if S3 is not equal to S4, then you are executing this. So we say that if they are not equal to, then go to label L1. L1 is here. Okay, which is corresponding to a statement. This one F minus I. So L0 will have F minus I, or F will be equal to F minus I. And if the condition is not met, it means that I is equal to J. That's S3 is when we say branch not equal to. If they are equal to, then don't take this jump, but continue to execute next statement. So these two statements will be executed. Okay. Now you don't want to execute this statement here. Okay, because that's not the logic of if then else. Then you do is that, okay, then we'll have to go to the next statement. Then you make a jump to next statement here. Okay, so I suggest you try doing this at room and see what are values of registers and how you can achieve these results. Okay. All right, so let's move ahead. Now let's instead of if then else, then let's have while loop. The logic is exactly the same that we are going to use it. Okay. Now here, what we are trying to do is that we are calculating 2 raised power x, and where x is a power, and you determine the value of x when 2 raised power x becomes 128. Now this algorithm you're writing in C is very simple. Initialize POW, a variable s1, initialize integer a variable x as 0, and then you have this loop while POW is not equal to 128, then POW is equal to POW into 2. Okay, so in first iteration it will be 1. Okay, so 1 from 1 initially is 1, so this condition is not met. Sorry, this condition is not equal to this one, so the whole thing will be true then. So this will be true because this condition POW is not equal to 128, so this will be true. So then you execute these statements here, then POW becomes 2 and x becomes 0 plus 1 1. In second time POW will become 4 and x will become 2, and so on, right? Continue doing this until you get 2 raised power x. After 8 loops, you will hit on this condition where POW becomes 128, then you exit. Okay, all right. So how do we develop this algorithm in assembly? It means the compiler will convert this statement in corresponding to a assembly language statement, which will look something like this. So let's assume that S0 will contain POW, S1 will contain X. Okay, now you have to initialize this so that POW is 1. So POW is S0, so you add 1 to this one. Use add immediate S0 equal to 0 and 1. So it means that 0 plus 1 will be brought into S0. Second is add. It means that S1 will become 0, which is X becomes 0. Okay, which is 0 plus 0 and bring it to S1. So it's a 0. And then maximum value is 128. So 128, let's keep it in register T0. So by using this statement add I T0 0 128, we bring 128 to register T0. Okay. So now after execution of this, we know S0 will have 1, S1 will be 0, and T0 will be 128. Okay, any doubt? It's simple. Now you have a label here while. Note that while is high level language reserved word, not in assembly. So you can use this as a label. Okay, while BEQ branch on equal S0 is equal to T0. When value of S0 becomes T0, it means that S0 is initially 1, and then by increasing it, it becomes 128. Then we are done. So we come here. If that condition is not met, then you come to the next statement. So you increase, sorry, you left shift 1 by 1 position, so it becomes 2. So S0 become after in the sec. So S0 now becomes 2. Okay, and then you add. So increase this counter, right? So let's say x is equal to x plus 1. So S1 becomes 2. All right. Now you come to next statement and jump back to this statement. Okay, you continue to this until S0, value of S0 becomes T0, which that's a 128. So that's how we develop this logic. Again, you see that assembly tests for opposite case. That POW is equal to 128. Okay, while here in C we have POW not equal to 128. So you just reverse the logic, then construction and assembly code becomes easy. Okay, any question? So all this will be clear to you once you go through assembly. Look at this when you have time, and then think whether this is working or not working, and try other opposite case also and see that if it works. Okay, any question? Got it? नहीं आया समझ में?
So,
Hmm.
so is there any advantage of using jump, like just jump, like we can execute jump using b equal to now?
Try doing that. This is one example. Try doing this. But in general, I mean, if we use jump in assembly, okay. Else you think, how can you do it?
Okay, sir.
See, branch not equal to, again, see, branch equal to or not equal to, what are you doing? You are just checking certain condition and then you are jumping to some location, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hmm.
And while you have to create loop. So you mean to say is that instead of plain J unconditional jump, you can substitute it with something else.
Yes, sir.
Think about it. Because at this point in time, what option do you have? Because you have to repeat this execution. Okay, even if you substitute this by some condition, ultimately you will have to jump here. So why you are doing that?
Yes, sir.
But I got your point. So I would request you to just substitute it with something else and see if it works. Okay. Now, one thing you would have possibly studied when you studied the high level languages, that plain jump is not desirable instruction. Okay, because it changes it brings in uncertainty, because where you are jumping now, all this acceleration part, I mean, that you do by, we'll come to that. What we do is that we don't fetch one instruction at a time. We fetch number of instructions from memory. Okay, it's not that, say, one human computer says that fetch one instruction, execute it, and then bring another instruction. In normal practice, what we do is that we bring large number of instructions together and then execute them, assuming that there is no branch in between. Now, if there's a branch, then we'll have to flush out those instructions which we have brought in and then bring in the next instruction. So this, we lose some cycle in the whole process. That's the reason when we do programming in general in high level language, then we try to minimize unconditional jumps. But when we do it at lower level, convert these higher level construct to lower level instruction in assembly, then this unconditional jump is unavoidable in many situations. Okay, we'll come to that advanced concepts little later, but it's nice that you have this thought. Thank you. Okay, the last part of this class is about the loop. Okay, for loop. Now, for loop is more structured way of looping around, or executing same set of statement. And you would have studied this, right? So for loop has following things. Like first is initialization. This initialization executes before loop begins. Okay, then the condition. Okay, then you check whether the condition is met. Okay, and that also happens at the beginning of each iteration. And if the condition is met, then you execute set of statements. Okay, and once you execute the set of statements, the last thing you do is that you do some changes, right, or some loop operation such that the value changes. Okay, okay, so we'll look at this. So here, okay, here we have, for example, we can say that for I is equal to 1, and then next statement is say I equal to not equal to or less than 10, let's assume. Then, so this is initial statement. This is what? This is a condition in the beginning that we have to check. And then we have to execute certain number of statement. And after that, we'll have to change this value. We can say I is equal to I plus 1 or I plus plus. Okay, so it means that this condition is executing after the set of statements are executed. And then once we increase this, then this condition is checked, because this was the initial statement. This is the initial condition. Initial. Then once you increase I to, for example, 2, then it will be checked whether I is less than 10. If not, then again this instruction executed. Again, after execution, you have to change it to 3, from 2 to 3, and so on. Okay. All right. So this is the semantics. All right. Let's come to for loop. Now it's very simple algorithm where you have to add from numbers from 0 to 9. Okay, that 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to 9. Okay, so you define two variables. Sum is equal to 0. Okay, you initialize it with 0, and then you have variable I, which is of type integer. Now, of course, you have not assigned it to 0 because the next statement is exactly doing here. So the for loop is then for I is equal to 0, and then next condition is that I is not equal to 10. It means that I can go up to 9, and then increase I by I plus 1, and then sum is equal to sum plus I. So sum is initially 0, then after first loop it becomes 1, after second loop it becomes 1 plus 2, and so on and so forth. And it goes up to I becomes 9, because as soon as I becomes 10, then your loop ends. All right. Now let's convert this into assembly code. Okay, so what do you do it here? You have to define I, and then what is the other value? Sum. Okay, and then you have to have some temporary. So I, so register S0 will contain I, register S will contain sum. Okay, and then you have one temporary called T0. Now first statement is, first you have to initialize this. So you initialize S1 to 0. S1 is that I is equal to 0, like here. Okay, and then S0, which is, I'm sorry, initialize sum is equal to 0 in the first statement. This statement is I is equal to 0. Okay, and third one is, well, value of T0 is equal to 10, which is equivalent to this value here. Okay, all right. So now you have label here for, and then your loop is as follows. The branch on not equal to S0 T0 is branch on equal to S0 T0 is done. It means that when value of S0 becomes T0, T0 is 10, you are done. If the value of S0 is less than 10, then you continue to execute this statement. So it's add S1 and S0, bring it to S0. It means that you do what is S1? Okay, S1 is sum. Okay, so sum, you are executing this statement. So essentially sum plus I you're doing, and then bring it to S1. So sum becomes sum plus I after execution of this statement. And then you're increasing the value of I, which is I is in S0 register. So S0 is incremented by 1. And so I will become, initially I is equal to 0. Then after execution of this, I will become 1. Okay, then you say jump to for. It means that you go back here and again check this condition and execute this, all these statements until value of S0 becomes 10. Okay, once S0 becomes 10, you jump to done. It means that that's all. That's next statement will be executed here onwards. Okay, any question on this one?
Why can't you write what does add for S1? Add.
Pardon? Which one you are talking? Which add? The statement here?
Yes,
So what are we doing? I mean, we are doing this statement, right? Sum is equal to sum plus I. So sum variable sum is in S1 and I is in S0.
Add I. Why can't we use add I there?
Then unit is a constant, right? But you don't know what S0 contains. S0 is not a constant. And S0 value is changing, right? You're changing it to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. All right. And you're incrementing it, right? So you're changing it. So value of S0 is changing. So you can't use, because add I will always have this field as constant. So you can't use that. Now, wherein here, because you are increasing the counter always by 1, so this value 1 we know, right? So we can use add I here. Okay, just, please do this again, you will get the logic. It's very simple, okay? Okay, how much time we have now? Oh, we are done, okay. Similarly, we can use less than comparison. We can use LT, for example, so I is equal, for loop is equal to I is equal to 1. So condition here is, instead of, we have used here not equal to, we have used less than. So really minor change in logic here. Okay. So, so next that we'll study is arrays. And we have already done this, right? How we define array and then use base register to have base value, which is in the beginning of array. And then we can access any value. So to summarize, today we have used the following constructs: branch not equal to, branch equal to, BLT and BGE. And we have seen how we can use these to develop, say, if statement in higher language, or if then else, or while and for. Array part we couldn't do today, so we'll maybe in the next class we'll start with arrays. Okay. Now my request to you is that please go through the slides, because it's very simple, very, very simple. This, it just requires you to think in assembly. Okay. And see, and actually take up some values in high level language, C program that we have discussed, and then see how you can store this in register and then execute this or run this mentally or on paper, the algorithm, the assembly language algorithm. See how values of registers are changing and how conditions are met or not met. Okay, it's very simple. It's slightly lower level of programming, so you will have to think very differently in terms of registers and what register contains what variable and so on. So far, remember that so far we have discussed only about integer instructions. We are not touched upon the floating point instructions, right? So maybe one of the classes will look at floating point instruction. We have yet not discussed multiply and division instructions, right? So we'll do that later. Okay. Meanwhile, please go through the book. Patterson and Hennessy book is Patterson Hennessy is available. It's not very expensive, so go through it. And this 5 forum, you can get plenty of material. Okay.